Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by CJ Vogel and Gerry Hamilton. It's time for this week's edition of the Recruiting Breakdown, talking Easton Royal, Texas coaches on the road, and what, if anything, is left for the Longhorns in the transfer portal. As always, the Recruiting Breakdown is brought to you by Mark Saunders, our favorite All-State agent here at OTF. We'll tell you more about Mark and All-State here later in the show. But, Gerry, let's get it started off. Easton Royal was on campus over the weekend. He braved the weather, made the trip over from Louisiana. Where do things stand with one of the top offensive playmakers in the 2027 class?
Yeah, the two big names last weekend were Easton Royal, the Texas wide receiver commit out of Brother Martin, and Brock Williams, a tight end out of Illinois. We're going to talk more about Easton Royal now, gather a lot of intel on that visit. And look, it was great to get Easton and his mom back on campus because Texas knows, look, Lane Kiffin was by the school last week. He's scheduled to be at Florida coming up this week, and they know there's going to be a real recruitment. I mean, he's one of the best receivers in the country. He's the Under Armour game MVP. He's probably going to run 10-2 this spring, and for players like that, they have to be battles, else you're recruiting the wrong fast guys. This guy can play football and run fast. So getting him on campus with his mom for a 2-day visit was huge for Texas. Everything I've heard, things went very well. He spent a lot of time obviously with Sark and Chris Jackson, even A.J. Milwee talking about the Texas offense. But he wanted to spend a lot of time with the players on this visit. Yeah, he did go to some of the Texas-Georgia basketball game. He put that out. Hayward Howard pretty much was a host of his in a way. That's who he hung out with. Hayward Howard, obviously from Edna Carr, New Orleans, know of each other. And a lot of people say, well, what about Arch Manning? Well, Arch is an older guy. I think Easton's was more focused on the guys who are going to be on the team at Texas should he sign with Texas. And he spent a lot of time with Hayward Howard and some of the younger players at Texas. That doesn't mean he didn't have a fist bump or something with Arch, right, or some of the older guys. But this was really about getting to know the younger guys on the team, getting more familiar with them, getting the lay of the land from those guys. But it was a really good 2-day visit for Texas. Texas will follow up. The coaches are on the road again through Friday. Then we go to a dead period on Monday, February 2nd. Texas may have some visitors in this weekend that are defensive players, but this will be coaches' last week on the road. So Sark, Chris Jackson, Jabbar Jaloop scheduled to be at Brother Martin Thursday. But before that, CJ, the Texas staff is in Houston Tuesday and Wednesday. This is kind of their quick whip around the city of Houston, seeing top guys. I know you have more on that.
Yeah, Houston's getting the top priority mark for early this week. Of course, as of when we're recording this Tuesday morning, they were at Langham Creek right before this. They extended 2 offers out there. One to Ezekiel Anyambili, edge rusher defensive lineman who was on campus twice during the summer a year ago, and then Jaden Nelson, another outside linebacker edge prospect, both at Langham Creek. They'll stop by Shadow Creek as well. Jerry, we believe that they're going to be interested in a wide receiver or 2 out there at the moment, but certainly prioritizing Houston. There's going to be a number of other stops as well as the staff continues to monitor H-Town over in the state of Texas. I'll also mention this, just going back real quick to the Louisiana conversation and Hayward Howard being involved with Easton Royal. Look, those guys in New Orleans, they talk, right? Everybody grew up playing with or against each other in the city of New Orleans. Also worth mentioning, I bet Texas also stops by St. Augustine as well. Chris Jackson made the stop, basically the same tour a year ago when he first offered Easton Royal, and he made the stop to St. Aug, where he offered 27 wide receiver Miguel Whitley and 27 wide receiver Raekwon Williams. So we'll see if Texas and the staff stops by once again just to reconnect, see what's going on over there. One of New Orleans and all of Louisiana's finest football programs at St. Aug.
Yeah, and a couple more guys in the Houston area I want to hit on. Julian Cromartie, son of Antonio Cromartie. He's a wide receiver at Woodlands College Park. He was at Mater Dei his first 2 years of high school, transferred out to College Park. A guy that Texas offered January 6th. Well, I think Bryson the Thrower out of North Forney is the number 1 in-state receiver on the board for Texas. We do expect Chris Jackson to stop by College Park to check out Julian Cromartie, who has a number of offers. He has had Kentucky, Ole Miss, Texas in January, Michigan late November. So son of Antonio Cromartie, a guy has some name ID, 6'2", 180. Pretty good prospect and in the state of Texas now that he moved in from California. We think Texas will be by a number of schools in the Houston area. Will they stop by Landon Williams Callis' school in Richmond Randall? We think they might. If we see something on that later today, that will not be a surprise. And they'll be out and about again in the Houston area. Probably go see Alvin Mosley at Fort Bend Crawford, near Shadow Creek, within 15 minutes of Shadow Creek. Alvin Mosley was at Texas Junior down the 17th. Another stop we expect is defensive lineman Xavier Muhammad at South Houston. With Kenny Baker being at Langham Creek, pretty decent chance he'll sweep by South Houston and see Xavier Muhammad, a guy that Texas has had some interest in. He's been on campus. They haven't extended the offer yet, but he's gone from a 6'4", 220-pound edge player to what I think is going to be a 6'4", 285, 290, 300-pound, 5-tech, 3-tech type of player. So a lot of talent in that Houston area in 27 and in 28. And the Texas staff is going to kind of be sweeping that area. Blake Jenkins, the corner at Katy Tompkins, could get a visit as well. A lot of talent in that Houston area as usual. And we expect Texas staff to be out and about in a number of places today and tomorrow.
Yeah. One last note on Cromartie real quick. Sorry, Jeff. I know you're dying to get back in it. He told OTF about a week ago that he's looking to officially visit Texas at some point in the summer. Kind of gives you an idea of the interest from his side as well.
Yeah.
Actually, CJ, I was going to go to you. By the way, shout out Leroy Scott. It's been a minute since Texas recruited anybody from South Houston. But CJ, we know the Texas staff, they're going to be all over the SEC footprint, but I know you had some intel. Texas also getting some stuff done on the West Coast this week.
Yeah, Mark Orfe made the trip out west. He saw a couple of prospects, both on Monday. The first out of Crayon Lutheran, that's Ty Johnson, a 2027 wide receiver who originally from about an hour north of Austin at Lampasas High. He made the trip, or I guess moved out west for his junior and senior years of high school. But 6'2" wide receiver, he's been on campus a number of times, says he's looking to grow that relationship with Texas, of course, still waiting for an offer. But the big one is Duve Williams, who Texas didn't in-home with. Mark Orfe didn't in-home with last night. The big top 40, top 50 national cornerback at Junipero Serra. That is one that I think Texas is going to start making a lot of noise in, right? We've talked about how Texas has gone coast to coast looking for cornerbacks. Well, right now, Duve Williams is one of the top in the country, and Orfe out there putting in a lot of work on the West Coast.
And Jeff, I'll add this. I think Texas is going to – some of the staff members are going to end the week in the Sunshine State in the state of Florida. That could be a couple of areas in Florida, South Florida for sure, maybe that Orlando, Tampa corridor as well. We expect to see multiple Texas staff members in the Sunshine State on Florida before they wrap up. That will be their final day on the road. But again, this goes to a dead period February 2nd and runs all the way through March 1st. So that's Monday, February 2nd. We do think Texas may have a few defensive visitors potentially on campus. Last weekend was a couple, 3 offensive guys. This weekend looks like more defensive guys. That's going to be largely weather dependent, though. Who can get where? And after last weekend in Dallas, what's the weather going to be like this week? It's still going to be chilly. It's not going to be as bad. But from a transportation travel department, what does that look like for Texas this weekend? But they're going to wrap up on Friday in the Sunshine State, and they are trying to get some top defensive players on campus this weekend.
All right, Jerry, we'll get back to it in just a second, but right now let's go ahead and give a shout out to our long-running sponsor here on the Recruiting Breakdown. It's our good friend Mark Saunders.
Countless on Texas football community members have made this call to Mark Saunders, Texas All-State agent. Mark Saunders' office, he serves the Austin and Round Rock area and the entire state of Texas. He protects all your stuff, man. Everything from your home, car, and boat to your motorcycle, RV, and ATV. Call Texas alum and Texas All-State agent Mark Saunders' office today, 512-218-8571. Our On Texas Football Guarantees is with over 35 years of experience that Texas alum Mark Saunders brings to the table. You will be in great hands.
CJ, really quick, speaking of hands, you and I addressed this topic on a live stream last week. We were asked about what are going to be the differences from a recruiting standpoint with Will Muschamp on staff now as the defensive coordinator. And I thought you put it best. Hey, it's the fact that he's actually going to be out on the road. That just wasn't something that PK did. But CJ, what impact do you expect that to have with Will Muschamp actually being on the road, getting eyeballs on guys?
Well, look, it's just another conversation to say from the head man of the defense, where do I fit? How do you see me being a piece of this puzzle, right? What is my relationship going to be like with you? And Jerry, I know that while we were in Orlando, it was in a way refreshing to hear some of the top defensive backs in the country say, hey, yeah, immediately after he took the job, he was on the phone with me, right? Because for the most part, it was, how was your relationship with your position coach? And that was about it, right? You'd get to campus, talk to PK a couple times if you made it several times to campus. But now it's Will Muschamp saying, hey, I personally see you playing this, being a part of that. That is how the piece of the puzzle is being laid out for a lot of these defensive prospects. And I think that is a refreshing sign for Texas recruiting. And altogether, it never hurts when Will Muschamp, of all people, is calling your phone or coming to see you in person.
It doesn't leave unanswered questions. So one, Muschamp's making his own evaluations in person, which is the way he's always been. But two, that communication that CJ hit on. Look, and we're not trying to, throw dirt on the Texas grave of PK, but look, he was not an active recruiter. He was not a guy that was on the phone a lot with guys, a lot with prospects. It was a lot, like CJ said, it was Kenny Baker and maybe his defensive line assistant, and then trying to get Sark on the phone with a defensive prospect, more so than the D coordinator. Same thing in the secondary, same thing at linebackers, unless PK was personally recruiting a guy. That's not the case with Will Muschamp. Will Muschamp is going to be on the phone daily with, when the NCAA allows it, daily with their top targets. He's not just going to leave Blake Gideon out there and saying, hey, well, let's get Sark on the phone with this guy now. Will Muschamp is going to be part of the evaluation process. He set the new way Texas is going to offer these guys and kind of the requirements for offering defensive players. And then he's going to be very much part of that recruiting process. So a parent doesn't come to Texas at the 11th hour and say, hey, we don't really know the plan for our kid from the defensive coordinator. Though that's not going to happen at Texas under Will Muschamp's watch.
Yeah, and like you said, Jerry, it's not a knock on PK. It just is what it is. He didn't leave the office much to recruit, but even going back to, and I know, look, recruiting has changed drastically now from when Will Muschamp was first at Texas. But Jerry, you go back to the first go round, and that was the big thing that jumped off the page, was just not only how personable he was, but he's not just going around glad handing and popping his head in just to make appearances. If Will Muschamp's at a school looking at prospects, he's evaluating for the minute he walks in the door.
And he's having real conversations. He's a straight over tackle individual, right? I mean, he's not giving these big worldly recruiting speeches. He's saying, look, this is what I see from you. This is what I like about you. And by the way, this is where you need to get better. And that's why I want you to play for me. He said, and if you don't like that, I don't know what to tell you, but look, man, you may be a great guy as a safety that's a hard hitter, a downhill player, and we can knock somebody's block off, but you have issues in coverage. And if you want to get your name called and walk out on that stage, we got to get you there. And I can help get you there. I mean, this is going to be over the tackle conversations. And I think it's going to go over well in a world where kids and parents watch their kids get built up from a young age. And there's not enough people that are willing to have the real conversations. Yeah. And the ones that do, I still think have an impact in recruiting outside of the transactional piece.
Mm. Yeah, CJ, you're on the road a lot, talking to parents, talking to recruits. I think people would be surprised, even in the NIL rev share portal era, kids that have legitimate NFL aspirations, they still want to be coached hard and want to have those real conversations.
Yeah, it's something that we hear pretty often from some of the top guys. And, you hear about it whenever guys commit to a Georgia or Ohio State, Alabama. I know Saban was a guy where, he almost got an NIL discount knowing that a lot of these guys were going to develop you. And look, I'm not saying Texas won't eventually get to that point, but if you were able to sit down with Will Muschamp, hear all about his pedigree, what he's done at previous spots, all right. Do I need to go to the highest paying place now because I know that at Texas, Will Muschamp will get me to where I want to go? I think that's a strong possibility. But altogether, I think Muschamp on the road certainly helps with a prioritization factor, right? He is setting his own big board, getting with his position coaches and basically seeing these guys in person, doing that from behind the screen. I think it's tough, right? It's different when you get to go evaluate, see the hand size, see how the lower body is built. You understand fully rather than a measurement day at a junior day or something else along those lines. So all in all, Jeff, I think that helps. And especially knowing that Will Muschamp has the skins on the wall to back that up. that plays a large role.
Gerry, we'll wrap this up talking about the transfer portal. And if you're shopping in the transfer portal, you don't need to be the Christmas Eve shopper that put everything off until that day. You need to be the person, hey, maybe I need something for the stockings, just a little bit here and there, nothing too major. Gerry, that's what Texas is doing at this point, but it's getting pretty clear now. They're shutting it down at a few positions and just not a lot left that the staff is looking for in the portal.
Yeah, I wanted to address Raul Aguirre, the linebacker from Miami that jumped in the portal. There's been a lot of questions. Hey, is Texas going to go after this guy? On Texas football, sir, that Texas is not. I think they feel pretty good about where they're at with linebacker. Obviously, with Rasheem Biles coming in, obviously the freshman Tyler Atkinson, 2 other freshmen, Kosa Paula, Rocky Cummings, then getting Marcus Boswell as a guy that can compete there at linebacker. I think Texas and Brad Spence, that ability to play linebacker. Obviously, you have Ty Anthony Smith returning. I think Texas feels like they filled their needs at linebacker, what they needed. I think still left is offensive guard and possibly edge. I think those are the 2 positions. Not to say something couldn't happen in another position, CJ, but I really think that's where things are headed right now is a guard, a guy that could potentially compete for a starting guard spot, and then a possibility of that overhang linebacker edge rusher, something that they like, that Will Muschamp likes, is out there. Maybe more of a 1-year developmental guy there, but I think that's really what we're looking at right now.
Did you say left guard, Gerry?
Maybe.
All right, we'll see what emerges, but of course, Texas is going to continue to comb over what's going on in the portal at the moment. So, look, I know that there's also been some questions about Lawrence Seymour. Look, we still do not believe that there's eligibility remaining. He exerted 4 years plus a red shirt. I know that he's in one of the lawsuits with the Pavi or Chambliss. Look, we'll see what goes on, but ultimately right now, no eligibility expected on our end. I'll also mention this because a little bit of, I don't know if it's breaking news, but as the time that we're recording this, Texas, Kenny Baker, Jeff Banks, Steve Sarkisian just stopped by Cy Falls to see Texas A&M edge rusher Caden McCarty. So another stop happening in live time. We're bringing you the latest.
Hey, Gerry, real quick on the portal, because I know you and Bobby got this question on Coffee and Football Tuesday morning, and I thought Bobby had a really good response that you don't know when Texas will be actually done in the portal. But it's possible, Gerry, you guys talked about this, they could be backfilling the roster really all the way up until the summer if there's grad transfer guys in there that are just finishing school that pop up on the radar, and maybe they need an extra depth safety after spring ball or whatever. So they're not done until probably they get to camp in late July, early August.
Yeah, I mean, there's thousands of guys still in the portal, right? I mean, that's the reality. And there's still some good players in there that can fill some positions for you, fill some roles for you. It won't surprise me if something doesn't pop up in after spring football practice in a May or something. As I say, Texas is looking to add this from the portal. I think that's when you're going to find out. And look, the other thing is through spring, guys, there could be an injury that impacts that as well.
100%.
That's the main thing, is there could be an injury that impacts kind of their thinking and still looking in what's left in the portal and how that addition could potentially help them in 26.
I was going to add to that. Just because a player is signing in the spring doesn't mean that they're a bad player, right? Maybe they didn't find their priority spot right away. But look, to your point, a lot of these guys also had the idea of, hey, I might be a second-tier guy. The top money will go to the top-tier guys. Let me wait until that spring market to kind of give myself a boost. So purposely kind of delaying their decision is certainly in play here. I'll also add this. If Texas is looking to get older in terms of roster depth, spring portal or that spring window for signees is certainly a time to do exactly that as well.
No doubt. Just because the portal window is closed doesn't mean portal activity is finished by any stretch. CJ, Gerry, thank you guys for the knowledge and expertise as always. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes for producing it. Thank you to Mark Saunders Allstate for sponsoring it. If you're not a member over at ontexasfootball.com, you still got a few days to take advantage of our Portal Madness special. First-time subscribers get your first month of access at ontexasfootball.com for just $1, but do not wait any longer. If you've been thinking about taking the plunge, do it right now. This offer ends at the close of business on January 31st. So once the calendar flips to February, this offer will no longer be valid. So again, first-time subscribers, get over to ontexasfootball.com and get your first month of access for just $1. For CJ, for Gerry, for Matthew, for the entire On Texas Football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and until next time, Welcome.